euro. And if you earned less than €200 a week, you'll receive €203. Should you need the pandemic unemployment payment, you can apply for it until the end of this year. The payment will continue until April 2021. For more information, visit gov.ie/DEASP COVID-19. A Government of Ireland initiative, brought to you by the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now you're welcome back. So Stephen Kenny was talking to the media at large today. It feels like we've been talking about this Slovakia-Ireland Euros playoff semi-final forever. It's obviously been delayed several times over, but suddenly it has come into sharp focus. It is Thursday week, 8th of October in Bratislava. The winners will obviously advance to the playoff final against either Bosnia-Herzegovina or Northern Ireland. That will be on 12th of November. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent is with us. Good evening.
Evening, Joe. I was enjoying your feisty exchanges with Richie there.
Bloody hell.
It was almost like the Sky studio, you know, except that, I don't know, you actually really weren't getting on there for a minute. I don't know, it was all very uncomfortable, to be honest, you know, very uncomfortable.
Who was I in the exchange? I couldn't work out.
I don't know, actually. A slightly frazzled Dave Jones, to be honest, maybe. It was more like someone coming at him, you know, but yeah. Anyway.
Seeing as you've brought it up, you'll notice I hadn't brought it up. I was trying to put
Sorry,
the last
I don't even want to go
half hour behind us. I mean, I really was. If anyone's just tuned in now, everything's fine. We're a happy family. It's all been okay. Go on then, Dan. Your thoughts on last night's moment?
Like, it was entertaining. Like I did a piece on Keane not long ago where I sort of made the point that he's always going to be entertaining. People are like, you can hold the view, as I probably do now, that, like, you know, that Roy Keane's probably, that we went through a phase 10, 15 years ago where everything Roy Keane said was right. You know, when Keane says something, it's gospel, it's correct, he's right. I think over time, I think that aura has faded to the point where actually Roy Keane can be wrong quite a lot, but can be right on maybe very basic things. But as a pundit, he's not necessarily going to give you like that explanation of something that's happened in an analytical way, but it's going to be very entertaining still. And so, you know, I think I made the point in that piece that I'll still be turning on when I hear when you hear Roy Keane's volume, like you hear Roy Keane on the TV, you kind of instinctively find yourself turning the volume up, even if you protest too much that you're not interested. I suspect even as much as Richie or someone says it, still probably going to keep an eye on the next thing he says. But what probably has, you know, you speak to people who've maybe sparred with Roy Keane over the years, and they've always actually said, some of them would have made the point, I think Johnny Walters has said this openly, and others as well, that actually when you take him on, it's what he doesn't necessarily enjoy all that much. Frawley enjoys it. And I just thought the dynamic was kind of funny. He was actually wronged. He was misheard by Klopp, and he had this awkward exchange, almost like these Zoom calls that people have been on during the lockdown, where people don't know each other that well or trying to have a Zoom call. It's always just uncomfortable. But actually, you could just see Keane on the shoe on the other foot. I thought that was entertaining. Yeah. That's about as far as it goes. You know, it was more like, you know, there's actually a strong character in the room too. Whereas you obviously sense with the other pundits at times, and you've been on the stage with him, he's obviously an all powerful presence when he's there, and people sort of are intent or hooks about really having a go at him in any shape or form, and Klopp was doing it, so of course it was entertaining.
Massively, yeah. No, he's a unique figure in real life 3D when you're looking at him, for sure. But I don't think, I mean, he's been in disputes before, and we've seen that. But I don't think I've ever seen anybody instigate trouble with Roy Keane. Like, Klopp went looking for it. You know, sometimes you have to defend yourself, or you find yourself in a debate with him if he disagrees with what you said. But Klopp was like, hang on a second, I want to start a fight with Roy Keane here. I've never seen that, ever.
And Keane is like, well, actually,
not since Mick McCarthy walked in with the newspaper. No, let's not go into that.
But Keane wasn't actually starting one, you see. That was the whole thing. It was like, so there was a confluence of events. But hey, I don't think it's worth analysing to death either. No. It was just a moment, and I think I sort of agree with your point, or was it Richie's point? It's the industry that arises from the Keane stuff that could be grating. Yeah. But actually, I watched it for 5-10 minutes. I was laughing away, going, "That was great." That's it. You know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if we had the discipline to just park it, or else if social media
what does this say about him?
Yeah.
What does this say about him? Sort of stuff. It doesn't say very much.
We can overreach. Well, I've enjoyed this chat on it more than you screaming at me for the last half hour, or someone else screaming at me, I have to say.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Less anger in this chat.
Let's move on. Mike.
Whew. Okay, so Stephen Kenny in town. I mean, as I said there, this game has almost felt like it was forever just beyond the horizon, and now it's so immediately here, and it's obviously of such importance. He has named his team, Dan. The headline news being, I suppose, it's a 25-man squad. Jack Byrne is in, and Derek Williams is in as well. They were the two who certainly weren't in for the Bulgaria-Finland games. Any other kind of general bits and pieces from the squad named initially you want to mention?
Do you know, not really, but that in itself is probably informative. That like he basically named a 24-man squad last month. He's lost Troy Parrott. He's changed one of the goalkeepers with Kelleher instead of O'Hara, and he's added Jack Byrne and Derek Williams, and that's basically it. Like you're at that 20, you know, that's the turnover. So there really isn't, like I said, I would make this point in the piece I'm doing for tomorrow, that actually it's not really the squad announcement that's the intrigue. It's almost confirming the point that really it's what he does with the existing pool of players that are there, as opposed to necessarily this radical overhaul. Now, in fairness, he has put in Ida and Malumbi, and he's done that, and he's put them in from the start and given them 2 games, or sorry, with 2 games in the case of Ida, 1 in Malumbi. Connolly, obviously, who was around last year, but sort of on the fringes, you know, in and out of the place. But really, I think when Stephen Kenny has a formula that he's broadly happy with, and I think this is a pattern of his career, that he doesn't necessarily like change that much, you know, in the sense that he's not someone who's been a big squad rotation person. You know, he has an idea about the staff he wants and the setup he wants, and probably has had a lot of time to think about the players that he wants. And as a result, it doesn't surprise me that, you know, from say game 2 to game 3, if you want to put it in those terms, that we're not seeing all of a sudden, you know, bodies being plucked from left, right, and centre. I'm not expecting a big formational change or anything like that. I think it's more a case of trying to produce a better version of what we saw earlier this month, as opposed to, you know, scrubbing the whiteboard again and starting from scratch.
Yeah, good. It'd be a worry if we were at that stage for the third game. First clip for you. So he was asked naturally enough about Jack Byrne's inclusion. Have a listen.
Yeah, I think I've been consistent in my selection. I think, you know, I think we've increased the squad from 23 to 25. We've 3 games this time. I think Jack has played quite well. Did well against AC Milan in the Europa League game, it must be said. Thought he had a good game against AC Milan, and obviously followed that up with 2 goals the weekend. So, you know, he's in the squad on merit, and he deserves to be in the squad.
And him being I suppose a home player here, and you're obviously based here as well. Has there been communication between the two of you since the last window, or?
You know, not really. I think I'm in contact with I spoke to his manager. I spoke to Jack after the last squad and certainly squad announcement. But I've been able to attend some of the games, and that's been it's good to see.
And as a former League of Ireland manager, do you feel under pressure? Or did you feel under pressure to include Jack in the squad?
Well, I think you wouldn't know. You wouldn't really know me if you asked that question. You know what I mean? You know, I think you know, I don't agree with that summation at all.
It was eyebrows raised when he was out of the last squad. So
yeah. No, that's irrelevant. I don't, you know, I'm not influenced by anyone else in that regard.
You make your own decisions.
Yeah, you know, I think myself and the coaching staff, we get together and we make decisions based on what we see, and you know, and that's it.
A little bit, you know, feisty.
Well, yeah, I wasn't in that section. Now I was in another section. The way things are done with sort of COVID and smaller pods, but I mean, I do think like it's we've all asked daft questions in our time, but you know, it's sort of I think he has to cope with aspects of this, like, you know, like that he picks League of Ireland player. Oh, do you feel under pressure to do it because of your background? Yeah, maybe it's a fair enough question to ask.
I think it's a fair question. I think it's fair.
But I think, yeah, maybe so. But like, I think, I guess his answer is fair as well. That if if you knew him, you wouldn't ask that. I don't think that's ever going to be his mindset as Ireland manager, and won't be. You know,
not all of us can know him personally.
Yeah, exactly. I get that, but like I think again, it's just, you know, he's just been pigeonholed in this League of Ireland man mode, and I can see how that would grate, to be honest.
No, I get that.
He's there as Ireland manager on merit too, and to suggest that he would, as a Ireland manager for a big game, you know, pick someone from a squad on the basis of some perceived loyalty to something, then he wouldn't be doing his job right. So I think he's entitled to actually hit back at that line of thought a bit, to be honest.
In much the same way that Roy Keane is allowed to express an opinion about Liverpool and Klopp is allowed hit back, we've just seen it there. I'll find a way to weave Roy Keane and Klopp into every exchange this evening. How about that? So Coleman and Doherty, a.k.a. Klopp and Keane. Seamus Coleman's obviously been in very good form. Doherty settling in at Spurs, and obviously he hasn't had as much of a pre-season. So Stephen Kenny, Dan here, asked if that gives him a bit of a headache when deciding the team.
No, listen, these are good problems to have. These are the problems that we want to exist. You know, we don't have that situation in every position, but we are pleased that several players are playing regularly in the first team. I think this is a lot different than a month ago, when obviously the players were in pre-season mode, hadn't played games, and Seamus been in fine form, there's no doubt, and that's a good sign.
Are you tempted to include both now, considering the form of Stephen, and we know Matt Doherty has been solid for so long? Are you in a position now where you just need to include both in your starting 11?
No, we're not in a position to do anything. We'll do what we feel is right for the game itself, and I think that's the key. You know, they're both versatile players, so they're both, you know, Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman are huge assets to Ireland. Like, I think, you know, that's what we want. We want that in all positions if we can have that.
The debate has already started, I'm sure. You know, you're in a delicate situation, because if you start Doherty, people will say, well, Coleman is the form player, whereas if you start Coleman, people will say, well, he's being indecisive, he's chopping and changing.
You know, what anyone else thinks is irrelevant. That's the way I view it, you know, and I think, you know, Seamus has been a great captain for Ireland and great player, and obviously he started the season well. Matt finished the season brilliantly with Wolves, you know, brilliantly. Scored quite a number of goals, involved in goals every week, creating you know, obviously the last games for us, he was in pre-season mode. He's coming back in a bit, and I thought his best game probably for Tottenham was last weekend. Actually, he looked really back to himself and did very well. So that bodes well.
Not an easy decision.
No, like, I mean, I suppose in some respects you call it a great problem, but it's at the same time it's one that, you know, if the game is won or lost, I think the decision will be judged on the basis of that, if you get me, you know, and it'll be flagged as a factor if it goes wrong, even if it's not the factor that decides the outcome. I think, you know, there's no doubt, like, from speaking even to people who would have, you know, Matt Doherty quite well, he was nowhere near fit enough really last month. So as a result, like, he had an audition of sorts, but probably like not a full service audition. But the fact that Kenny picked him would suggest he's going to pick him again. That would be my read from it. Although, you know, I wouldn't, at the same time, like, Coleman has played well for Everton. And it's an interesting one, this, because there was a big clamour, I suppose, for Doherty to replace Coleman, probably across the last 18 months. And now all of a sudden it's coming round to the view where Coleman can't be dropped, whereas there was definitely a groundswell of popular opinion probably going the other way. So it's like Coleman's return to form, it's sort of flipped maybe sides of the debate that people would have taken. It's a challenging one. Again, like, it's possible at some stage he might look at a shape or a structure for a particular game where he looks at playing the both of them. But I can't see how he does that based on Anthony said in the short term. I think he will have to pick one, and it's tough. Yeah, it's a really challenging one. But I think it would be unusual, I guess, for him to have picked Doherty for the two games and reverse it. But it's that. I mean, you've got your captain. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's the one position where maybe an injury wouldn't cause that many sleepless nights. Although that's maybe a stupid way of talking, really, because they're great quality options to have in any scenario. And I mean, there's 3 games coming up, and they're all important in their own way. But there's really one game that this window is about.
Yes.
And will he go for the more experienced heads for that one? like it's possible in other positions, but I would have thought picking Doherty there, he's got an idea about how the team wants to operate, and he's part of it.
We'll pick this up. You're back on the football show at 9:30. There's a bunch of other aspects of this I want to talk to you about, and have a few more clips of Stephen Kenny. It is worth just noting, you know, in the context of just how important this game is. Like, you're watching the Premier League of late, and so Coleman's back in very good form. Doherty's obviously going to get his fitness again. You've got Jeff Hendrick playing at Newcastle, which is a big change for him and can only bring him on. Callum Robinson's 2 goals against Chelsea, really, really good. You know, took them really well, and he's bound to benefit from a full season behind him in the Premier League. Aaron Connolly, goal last week and a nuisance against United. Conor Hourihane scoring 4 at Villa last night. It's kind of a plethora suddenly doing very well in the Premier League, which is not something we've had for a lot of the last decade.
No, it's a really good start. I think like the stats last year, like I do at the end of every Premier League year, like you do a review of the year, whatever. The stats last year were better than, say, the previous 3 years. And the start of this season already, the appearances in the first 2 weekends was not far off the total number of players, like individual players, that had featured last year. I think we had 16 or 17 maybe involved with the opening weekend, thereabouts. So, yeah, like it is encouraging. Now, again, it's clustered around certain positions, but then there's a you know, and maybe we'll talk about it a bit later on. Like the Callum Robinson is playing centrally for his club, Aaron Connolly centrally for his club. Maybe different things being asked of them for Ireland, and you know, some of the players that are doing well. Like, you have to be conscious that they're also surrounded by a certain type of players at club level, and fusing them all together with Ireland. Like, we're still maybe lacking 1 or 2 particular type of players, like that real midfield sort of playmaker, say, who creates those opportunities for them. But, you know, yes, like there have been times in recent memory where we've looked at weekends with 4 or 5 Irish appearances in the Premier League, or none on a Saturday or something. Where, you know, that situation doesn't look like existing in the season that's ahead. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's very positive. Let's pick this up then at 9:30. There's still plenty to talk about. From me, Roy Keane, to you, Jurgen Klopp, Dan. We'll park it there for the moment. Thanks a million.
I look forward to it, Joe.
Off the ball on News Talk.
This week on Embedded Tech in Town, we're talking about how digital transformation has optimised productivity across multiple sectors. Or, to put it in